I wasn't planning to talk about this, but lately I've been thinking about the night everything changed between me, my son, and the woman he married. It still sits in my chest like a splinter that never healed. Before we continue, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It was late February in Denver, the kind of night when the wind feels like it carries bits of snow that never quite melt. Dinner was supposed to be simple: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and a bottle of Coors Light. My son Ryan sat across from me, spinning his fork like he used to when he was a kid, about to ask for something. His wife Susan sat beside him, scrolling on her phone, tapping her nails against her wine glass. I knew that rhythm. It wasn't random. It was impatience. When Ryan finally cleared his throat, I could already feel what was coming. "Dad," he said softly, "Susan and I were talking. We just feel like maybe you could, I don't know, contribute a little more around the house." I looked up. "Contribute?" Susan didn't even glance at me. She just smiled faintly and said, "For someone who lives here rent-free, it would be nice if you helped out more." For a moment, I thought I misheard her. Rent-free? My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. I looked at Ryan, but he didn't say a word. His eyes dropped to his plate like a guilty teenager. The silence stretched until the only thing I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and the faint clicking of Susan's nails. So I smiled. I smiled because I didn't trust my voice, and I finished my dinner like a gentleman. But inside, something cracked. Not loud, just a quiet snap. The kind that doesn't echo but shifts everything. When I moved in 2 years ago, it wasn't because I needed help. My wife, Linda, had just passed after 42 years of marriage. The house we built together felt too empty. Ryan and Susan had just bought this big 2-story place in Centennial, way beyond what they could afford. So I sold my home in Aurora and gave them $110,000 to help with the down payment. Every month, I sent $1,500 directly to the mortgage. My name is still on the papers, but I never mentioned that. I didn't need to. I was proud to help my son. That's what fathers do. The next morning, I made pancakes for my grandkids, Lily and Ben, Mickey Mouse shaped, just like they liked them. They giggled while I flipped them, syrup ready, butter melting. Susan walked in, phone in hand. "Smells good," she said flatly, then added, "Just make sure you clean up the counter this time." "The syrup last week was sticky for days," I nodded, still smiling. "Of course." But my hand was gripping the spatula tighter than it should. Later, after dropping the kids at school, I sat in what they called the guest suite. Funny thing is, the guest suite was technically mine. My name helped them qualify for the mortgage in the first place, but lately Susan's words had started echoing through the walls. Rent-free, help more, contribute. That night, I checked my email. The automatic transfer reminder popped up. Mortgage payment scheduled for March 15th. I hovered the mouse over it and thought about something my father told me decades ago. Respect isn't given once, it's earned every day. I didn't cancel it right then, not yet. Instead, I decided to test something first. The next week, I did everything Susan wanted. I washed dishes, mowed the lawn, took out the trash before she even asked. I thought maybe she'd notice. She did, but not the way I hoped. "Finally pulling your weight, huh?" she said one afternoon, wiping down the kitchen counter. "Guess it's never too late to contribute." That was it. Just like that, every ounce of patience I'd been saving since Linda's funeral vanished. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone with my checkbook. I looked at the numbers, the signatures, the mortgage account I'd been feeding for years. Then I did something small, something quiet. I moved the cursor over the cancel auto payment button. Click. The screen blinked once, then went blank. The next morning, Ryan smiled at me over coffee. "Thanks for breakfast, Dad," he said. "You're the best." I smiled back. But for the first time in a long while, the coffee tasted different, lighter, because he didn't know that somewhere in the system, a countdown had already started. A few weeks from now, an envelope would arrive in the mail. Thin, white, official looking. It would say something neither of them expected. And when Susan tore it open at the kitchen counter, her manicured hands would shake. She'd look up at Ryan with panic in her eyes and say, "The bank says we missed a payment." I'll never forget that image, because that was the first time in years she finally looked at me. And it wouldn't be the last. The first overdue notice showed up 3 weeks later, buried between a grocery flyer and a coupon book. White envelope, bold black letters, Bank of Colorado. I was pouring my morning coffee when I saw Susan's manicured hand snatch it off the counter, like it might bite her. She tore it open, read 2 lines, and her voice went sharp. "Ryan!" "What the hell is this?" From the hallway, Ryan stumbled out, half-dressed for work. Tie in one hand, travel mug in the other. He looked at the paper and his face drained of color. "That can't be right," he muttered. "Dad, did you send your part this month?" I took a long sip of coffee. "Oh," I said, setting the mug down slowly. "I must have forgotten." "You know how us old folks get. We don't contribute much." The silence that followed could have frozen the whole damn house. Susan blinked. Once. Twice. Then she turned and stomped upstairs. Ryan just stood there, looking at me like he wanted to say something but didn't have the spine. The funny part, I didn't feel guilty. Not at first. I just felt steady. Like the ground finally stopped shifting under my feet. Over the next few days, things got quieter around the house. Ryan stopped humming when he shaved. Susan canceled her standing nail appointment at that fancy place downtown. I noticed one of her designer handbags posted on Facebook Marketplace. "Barely used, $900 OBO. I didn't say a word. I just kept fixing small things, tightening a loose cabinet hinge, oiling the front door. Old habits die hard. But I wasn't doing it for them anymore. I was doing it because it made me feel human. The second notice came 2 weeks later, this time certified mail. Susan opened it while Ryan was at work. Her face turned red, then pale, then red again. "You know, Jack," she said, trying to sound calm, "I didn't mean what I said that night. You've done a lot for us, but this isn't right. We could lose the house." I leaned back in my chair. "Funny," I said. "You didn't seem too worried about losing me." That one landed. She left the room without another word. That night, I heard them arguing behind closed doors. Ryan's voice was low and tired. Susan's was sharp and scared. Words like mortgage, late fees, and credit score drifted down the hall. I turned off my lamp and smiled in the dark. Not out of joy, but out of something colder. Justice. Still, I wasn't proud. Part of me kept thinking about Linda. What she'd say if she saw me turning their world upside down. She was always the forgiving one. "Jack, don't burn bridges you built yourself," she used to tell me. So the next morning I decided to be merciful. I made breakfast. Pancakes again, this time shaped like hearts instead of Mickey Mouse. When Susan came downstairs, I poured her a cup of coffee. Real coffee. The good beans she liked, not the cheap stuff I usually bought. She looked surprised. "Thanks," she muttered. I smiled. "You're welcome." "Mortgage due again this week, right?" She froze mid-sip. "Yeah." I nodded. "Good luck." For a while, things balanced on that edge between polite and poisonous. Ryan worked extra hours. Susan stopped buying wine. The tension was thick enough to taste. Then one evening, after the kids were asleep, Ryan sat across from me at the kitchen table. His eyes were glassy, tired. "Dad," he said, "we're 3 months behind. The bank's calling every day. I can't do this without your help." I folded the newspaper and set it aside. "You can," I said quietly. "You're just going to have to learn how." He looked at me like a boy again. Same look he had when he fell off his bike and scraped his knee. I almost broke. Almost. But then I remembered the dinner table. The words rent free and Susan's smile. "Dad, please," he whispered. "Ryan," I said, "I stopped paying not because I don't love you. I stopped because you let someone make me feel like a burden in a house I helped build." His jaw trembled. He nodded, wiped his face, and said, "I'll fix it." After he went to bed, I sat there alone. The kitchen clock ticked like a heartbeat. I wasn't sure if what I felt was victory or grief. A few days later, Susan tried her version of an apology. She cornered me by the laundry room, voice trembling. I didn't mean to offend you, Jack. I just thought maybe you could, you know, do more around the house. Do more? I said slowly. You mean after mowing your lawn, fixing your faucet, watching your kids so you can go to yoga, and paying half your mortgage? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I smiled. Tell you what, Susan, I'll start doing more, just as soon as you two figure out that mortgage yourselves. And that was the last real conversation we had for a while. By the end of the month, the third letter arrived. Red ink this time, the kind of letter you don't mistake for anything else. Ryan's face went pale when he saw it. Susan didn't even open it. She just slid it across the table toward him and walked out. That night, for the first time since I'd moved in, I slept through the night without waking up once. But the peace didn't last, because the next morning I saw a missed call from the bank and a voicemail from someone I hadn't expected. A woman's voice, calm but firm. Mr. Miller, we need to speak with you about the ownership details on the property. And just like that, I realized the game wasn't over. It was just starting. The voicemail from the bank sat on my phone like a loaded gun. I played it twice that morning. The woman's voice calm but sharp. Mr. Miller, we need to clarify some details regarding the ownership and payment responsibilities of your property at 2148 Birch Hollow. Drive your property. Those two words hit harder than I expected. I'd almost forgotten the house was technically still mine. My name on the deed, my credit backing the loan, my money paying half the damn mortgage. Ryan and Susan thought they owned it. But the truth was, without me, they wouldn't have even passed the pre-approval. I spent the rest of the day thinking about that. The smell of burnt coffee lingered in the kitchen, the morning light cutting across the floorboards I'd helped pick out. I remembered standing in that same spot 2 years ago when we first moved in. Ryan grinning ear to ear, Susan hugging my arm, thanking me for making their dream possible. Now she couldn't even look me in the eye. Before dinner, I called the bank back. The woman, Janice, sounded polite, professional, but her words carried weight. Mr. Miller, your name is still listed as co-borrower and co-owner. The account shows 3 missed payments. If the delinquency continues, both parties' credit will be affected. Both parties, I rubbed my temple. So technically, if I wanted to make changes to the property or refinance, you'd have full authority to do so, she said. That sentence hung in the air long after I ended the call. That night, Ryan and Susan came home late. The kids were asleep, the kitchen lights dim. I was sitting at the table with a mug of black coffee, the unpaid mortgage letters stacked in front of me like trophies. Ryan dropped his coat on the chair. Susan's heels clicked against the tile. Dad? Ryan started, his voice weary. I'm sorry about how things got. Susan's been under pressure. I should have stepped in earlier. I looked up. You should have, I said quietly. Susan crossed her arms. Jack, we're all stressed, okay? It's not just about money. It's about fairness. Fairness, I repeated, leaning back. That's an interesting word coming from people living in a house I paid for. Her jaw tightened. You offered to help. No one forced you. No one forced me, I agreed. But when you make someone feel like a burden, you shouldn't be surprised when they stop carrying the weight. Ryan sighed, trying to diffuse the storm. Let's just calm down, okay? We'll figure something out. But it was too late for calm. The air between us had been rotting for months. That weekend I took a drive to Cherry Creek. The lake was still half frozen, reflecting the gray sky. There were rows of small mobile homes by the water, quiet, simple, clean. I met an old couple sitting on their porch, Harold and Diane, who told me they'd bought their place outright for less than the down payment on a city condo. They looked happy, free. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ticking clock, the creaking pipes, even the sound of Susan's laughter from downstairs, All of it felt foreign, like I was the ghost haunting a house that wasn't mine anymore. The next morning, I went back to the bank. Janice recognized my voice right away. "Mr. Miller, I assume you've made a decision?" "I have," I said. "I'd like to transfer my equity and close my payment account. But I'll need a withdrawal statement first." She paused. "That will remove you as a guarantor, sir. The remaining owners will be fully responsible for the debt." That's exactly the point. When I got home, Susan was unloading groceries. Organic kale, fancy cheese, imported olive oil, paid for with a credit card that was already crying for mercy. She glanced at the folder in my hand. "What's that?" "Bank paperwork," I said casually. Her eyes flickered with unease. "You're not doing something drastic, are you?" I smiled faintly. "Depends on what you call drastic." That night I called Ryan into the kitchen. I told him what I'd done, that my payments were officially stopped, my name was still on the deed, and the bank now had direct instructions to contact him for every overdue notice. He went pale. "Dad, you can't just—" "I can," I interrupted Odd. "And I did. Mom would never— Your mother would have told me to stop letting people treat me like I don't exist," I snapped. For a moment I thought he'd yell, but he didn't. He just sat there, shoulders slumped, the boy I raised now looking like a man who'd lost his footing. Susan stormed in a few minutes later, holding the paperwork I'd left on the counter. "You're ruining us," she shouted. "No," I said evenly. "I'm teaching you what it feels like to be taken for granted." The argument that followed lasted an hour. Voices rose, tears fell, and at some point, Ryan just walked out. When the door slammed behind him, the house went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I stood there, hands trembling, heart pounding, not from anger, but something heavier. I'd spent decades fixing things. Broken engines, broken fences, broken hearts. But this time, I wasn't sure if what I broke could ever be fixed again. Later that night, I found a voicemail from Janice confirming the transfer. "You're clear of the property, Mr. Miller," she said. "The remaining borrowers have full responsibility." I stared at my phone for a long time. The house around me suddenly felt colder, because for the first time since Linda died, I realized I wasn't just walking away from a house. I was walking away from my son, and that somehow hurt more than losing everything I'd built. When I closed my bedroom door that night, I noticed something strange, a sticky note on the dresser in Lily's handwriting. It said, "Love you, Grampy. Don't be sad." I smiled through tears I didn't expect, but downstairs I could hear Susan pacing, whispering urgently on the phone. I couldn't make out every word, but one sentence was clear as day. "If he pulls his name off the loan, we're screwed." And that's when it hit me. They weren't planning to learn from this. They were planning to fight back. I heard Susan on the phone long before I saw her. Her voice was sharp, panicked, slicing through the early morning quiet like broken glass. "No, we can't afford another missed payment, Mark." He pulled his name off the loan. "I don't care. Find another cosigner or something." She didn't know I was standing in the hallway, coffee in hand. The same house slippers, same faded flannel robe. But something inside me had shifted for good. When she hung up, she turned and froze. Her face dropped half a shade. "Jack, I didn't see you there." "No," I said, my voice calm. "You didn't." The air between us was electric. For months I'd been walking on eggshells in this house, trying not to be a burden. But this morning I felt something close to peace, because now the power was finally back where it belonged. Ryan came home that evening, shoulders slumped, exhaustion all over his face. "Dad, can we talk?" He looked like a man carrying 3 lifetimes of regret. "Susan told me you removed your name from the mortgage. You know what that means, right? We could lose the house." "I know," I said, sipping my coffee, "but you'll be free. You'll finally have a house that's yours, not one that needs my name to exist." "Dad, please," he said, voice cracking. "This isn't like you." I looked at him for a long time. "Maybe it's about time you learned who I am without the money attached." He didn't respond, just turned and left, the door closing softly behind him. That week, the cracks in their perfect life started to show. The new minivan disappeared first, repoed from the driveway before sunrise. Then came the notice from the HOA for unpaid fees. Susan stopped wearing makeup to the grocery store. Ryan took every overtime shift he could get. I kept to myself, fixed small things, spent time with the grandkids. But every night, as I watched the house dim into silence, I could feel something growing in me. Not satisfaction exactly, but clarity. One afternoon, I got a call from the real estate agent handling my new property at Cherry Creek. The mobile home was ready. Clean, simple, peaceful. "I'll take it," I said, my voice firm. The next day, I packed my things, mostly books, tools, and Linda's framed photo. She was smiling in it, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. That photo used to make me ache. Now it reminded me that she'd always wanted me to find peace, not servitude. When I carried the last box downstairs, Susan was waiting. "Leaving without saying goodbye?" she asked, arms crossed. "I was planning on it," I said. Her lips tightened. "You're punishing us." "Admit it?" I paused, really looking at her. "Susan, you punished me the day you made me feel like a guest in my own home." She laughed bitterly. "You think you're teaching us a lesson. You're just being petty." "Maybe," I said softly. "But sometimes people don't listen until the silence costs them something." She didn't respond. I left the house key on the counter and walked out without looking back. Cherry Creek was quiet that evening. The air smelled like pine and wet earth. My new place sat near the water, sunlight flickering through the trees. It wasn't big, but it was mine. I brewed a pot of real coffee, no one to complain about sticky counters now, and sat by the window, watching the lake shimmer. For the first time in years, I felt the kind of peace that doesn't come from money or family approval, just from finally choosing yourself. But peace, it turns out, doesn't last long. 2 weeks later, Ryan showed up. His truck looked older somehow, dust clinging to the sides. He stood on my porch, cap in hand. "Dad," he said quietly, "we lost the house." I said nothing. "I messed up," he continued. "You were right. I let her talk to you like that, and I didn't stop her. I thought you'd always be there to fix everything." "Ryan," I said, "I fixed too much for too long." He nodded, eyes wet. "I know. I just wanted to say, I get it now." Behind him, I saw Susan waiting in the truck, sunglasses on, staring straight ahead. For once, she didn't have anything to say. "Where are you staying?" I asked. "With her sister for now," he said. "The kids miss you." I smiled faintly. "Tell them I'll see them soon." He hesitated before turning to leave. "Dad, do you hate us?" I looked past him at the water, the sunlight, the quiet freedom I'd earned. "No, son. I just stopped letting people rent space in my life for free." He gave a small, broken laugh and nodded. Then he got in his truck and drove away. That night, as the crickets hummed and the moon rose over the lake, I made myself another cup of coffee and sat outside on the porch. The reflection of the water rippled like slow breathing. Somewhere in that house I'd helped build, Susan was probably packing boxes. Ryan was trying to start over, and the grandkids were wondering why grown-ups always ruin the good things. But for me, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming respect, the kind you can't buy, the kind no one can take unless you hand it over. When the phone rang again, Ryan's name flashing on the screen, I let it ring twice before answering. His voice cracked. "Dad, thank you." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't payback, it's peace.